Welcome to Government Contracting Weekly, sponsored by AOC Key Solutions Incorporated. Government Contracting Weekly is the only television program devoted exclusively to the competitive and dynamic world of government contracting. A world where coming in second place is not an option, but where principle-centered winning is the only approach.
Good morning and welcome to Government Contracting Weekly. I'm your host, Hilary Fordwich. This morning, we're going to take a deep dive into the critical area of pricing. Our program starts with a conversation I recently had with Sanjay Castelino, Vice President, SolarWinds, as we discuss challenges in an LPTA-centric world. After Sanjay, you'll meet Kris Collo, the President and CEO of MicroPact. There are those who would argue that there is no more important factor in winning or retaining government contracts than getting the price right. So there's a lot to cover. Let's get right to it. This morning I have with me Sanjay Castelino. He's the Vice President of SolarWinds. Good morning, Sanjay.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great, thank you, and thank you so much for coming here, particularly from Texas.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming. We actually got Sanjay out of a plane because he loves to fly, and we got him dressed because he's in Texas and it's very casual down there, I understand.
It is indeed.
Most people say. So, Sanjay, tell us a bit about SolarWinds and your background and why you founded the firm and where you are today.
My background is as an engineer and as a business person. I've spent a lot of time in the high-tech industry, now almost 25 years it seems. Really the mission of SolarWinds is to help IT professionals get their job done more easily. And we do that by providing them tools to allow them to manage the technology that they have to use every day. Because as you can imagine, the more technology that people have, the more time they spend managing it. Our tools were originally designed by IT pros. The gentleman who founded the company back in Tulsa, Oklahoma, was an IT guy, and he wanted a tool to do his job better. And so he built some tools to do that and started selling them, and the company went from there.
And you're here at the right time in the right place because the government needs things to be more efficient anyway.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things that we're seeing today is more and more people coming into the IT profession, and you need to be able to get going and get up to speed quickly. And one of the things that we've built in the products from day one is the ability to be up and running quickly. Our products, you can get up and running in about an hour.
So they're rapidly ramping.
They're rapidly ramping, and one of the things that our customers tell us and the government that they love is that they can bring new people in and they can be productive quickly.
So you want to be faster, you want to get it done quickly, you need to turn to SolarWinds. In talking with Sanjay this morning about LPTA, a lowest price technically acceptable, most people in the marketplace view that LPTA can work, particularly for commodities and products, but not necessarily for services. And I know, Sanjay, you obviously have to face LPTA, but what are some of your views from SolarWinds' perspective?
No, absolutely. And I think you sort of hit the nail on the head there. I think LPTA is a useful construct. What we find is, while it can be applicable to products and services around products like ours, it requires that the people putting out those bids put enough detail in there to make sure that the contractors who are responding to them can provide enough detail to make sure that they're comparing apples to apples, right? The worst thing that you can do is be general in an LPTA bid.
And some of them are vague. We've
heard
of that,
they
yes.
are vague. And so you end up with, you take our industry, if you look at just network monitoring as an example, network monitoring, there is software that costs hundreds of dollars and software that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the services that go around that. Clearly those two things do completely different things. And so in an LPTA bid, you don't really have the opportunity to explain the difference if the bid is not done in enough detail.
Right, and particularly we hear that that's becoming more and more prevalent, ironically, because government is issuing more and more LPTA contracts, and yet the procurement teams don't have as much time, they're not as well trained, and they don't have the background to be able to make them more specific.
Right.
So it's almost like the colliding of the two.
Yeah, and absolutely, and all that leads to down the road that we're seeing is higher costs for the government, and essentially having to repeat the work that they've already tried to do.
Yeah, so it's actually ironic because they're actually causing themselves more problems and taking longer.
Exactly,
Yes.
and in fact, it's not saving any money. In fact, if you ask me, it's probably wasting money.
Yeah, somebody said to me the other day, we should call LPTA, should be, the LT in the LPTA should be longest time. So due to all the contention there has been around LPTA, there have been those that say if they were to take out a crystal ball that the pendulum may well swing back to best value, and also there may be some highlighted issues around the ramifications and negative ramifications that have resulted from LPTA. What do you think, Sanjay? Do you agree with that? Do you think the pendulum's swinging back?
I think if you take out the crystal ball, I think the pendulum will naturally swing back, because I think if you look at the way the bids are done when they're vague, there are going to be some high-profile failures, and as those happen, people will swing the pendulum back the other way and try and go towards best value, and try and understand what distinguishes one contractor from another contractor, one product from another product, because at the end of the day, people are trying to accomplish something with all these projects, and if they don't accomplish them, they're going to figure out a way to change and do things differently.
And do things differently in terms of meeting LPTA. I know that this past year, with a couple of incidences we've had where government clearances were at issue, the government has outsourced those clearances to companies that say, oh, should we spend $500 vetting this person? Or sorry, 500 hours, or should we spend 1 hour? They spend 1 hour instead of the 500.
Yeah,
and then we have those incidents, and that's the lowest price. You got what you pay for.
That's exactly it, right? And I think there's a reason there's that saying, you get what you pay for.
You do.
And so, and I think the government will realize that LPTA is great. Look, if you want to buy pencils, do LPTA.
And the pencils probably break, but yeah.
But you'll get over it. It's not mission critical.
Right.
When you have things like security clearance that's mission critical, you don't want to do LPTA.
And why should a company that wins it say, well, if we can do it in 1 hour, why should we spend 500? They're just not going to.
No, and exactly. And they won't be able to make money with LPTA if they do spend the 500 hours. So they're going to be disincented to actually spend that time and energy, going into depth.
So do you see any specific indications of the government going in the other direction, or do you think that's what you think just will happen?
No, I think that's what will happen. I don't think we've seen enough high-profile issues and directly connected them back with LPTA. And I think before we see a wholesale shift the other direction, we'll start to see people trying to push the boundaries of LPTA, and some people actually playing within the framework of LPTA and putting more definition behind things. And vendors will help as well, because as a vendor who works with contractors to respond to some of these things, we'll ask the questions. Can we get clarification on A or B or C, only so that we can better respond to the bid.
That's right.
Right, and so I think everyone wants to succeed. No one wants to fail.
And most people, government contractors, they want to serve this nation, so they want to do the best job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so they'll be looking to go back and get those answers. And in that process, LPTA will get sort of stretched and evolved. And then if you do see a high-profile failure, then I think things will change very quickly.
Yes.
Right? Because that's always what happens.
Given the emphasis on LPTA, lowest price technically acceptable, there are those who speculate that perhaps prices will eventually bottom out, and that, ironically, in and of itself, is going to bring back best value. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think prices have to bottom out because at the end of the day, I go back to everyone's trying to accomplish something. And to do the job right, at the end of the day, you will find the vendors that can provide the best value and by definition be at the lowest price to deliver that value. So that's a good example where companies like SolarWinds play, right? We have built a product that is focused around maximizing value. The product starts at a very low price. In fact, pricing we make very widely available so people can see what it is up front. And it's something that we see in the market as people have to respond to these bids. They're looking for software and services that can deliver the value at a lower price, and really that's what we can help them do.
And so from SolarWinds' perspective, LPTA is actually been in some ways an advantage. It's been good because it's eliminated those competitors that can't do what you do.
Absolutely. There are competitors who, just from their structure, they have to put either more services or more software into a bid just to provide the same value. And so from a pricing perspective, that's definitely giving us an advantage.
And they probably have larger overheads.
And they do have
They're
larger
not as
overheads.
nimble either, yes. As our regular viewers know, Key Solutions is the force behind Government Contracting Weekly and provides strategy, capture, and proposal support services to government contractors to help them win government contracts. So Sanjay, I'd like to ask you, what are the keys to winning from the SolarWinds perspective? You won a lot of contracts, you've grown over the last few years. What are your keys to winning?
Yeah, I think the keys to winning at the end of the day revolve around actually delivering the value that you say you're going to deliver. The way SolarWinds has proven successful in the federal market is not because we started out selling to lots of government contractors and had an agenda to push. Rather the opposite. IT users found SolarWinds, they tried us, they were successful, then they brought us to contractors, and then contractors built us into.
So this wasn't actually strategically a part of your plan to ever become a government contractor?
SolarWinds at the beginning originally was as a small business in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
So that's a fantastic story to know that.
Yeah, and so they didn't, at the beginning of the company, I would say that, this has gone back 13, 14 years. The company didn't have, massive resources to go sell contractors on the value of things. Rather, people found SolarWinds and tried it. And when it worked, they adopted it more widespread. Now today, we're a much larger organization. We have a lot more support in place for contractors in the federal space. But the reason that we win is not because, we try to sell hard. The reason we win is that the product works, it's built with users in mind. And we touched upon this at the beginning, users really like the product. It helps them get their job done.
And so the users have found you.
Then when you have that, they ask for you to be part of it.
So they've discovered you.
Yes.
Right. So if our viewers want to discover SolarWinds, they just need to look out for you.
Go to the website
and find you. Thank you, Sanjay, for coming in and sharing with us.
You're welcome.
As you're about to see, Kris Collo brings a passion and a commitment to everything he does, and it's reflected in the success that MicroPact has shown to date. Let's meet Kris. This morning I have with me Kris Collo, and he is the president, the founder, and the CEO of MicroPact. Good morning, Kris.
Good morning.
And Kris founded his company himself. He founded it over 16 years ago and has had tremendous success, numerous rewards in this entire business community, from Deloitte & Touche, from Smart CEO, from Washington Business Journal, you name it. You have a phenomenal company, and actually you're a best places to work. So tell us about your company and your background.
Sure. So my background, I started the company 16 years ago. I started off as a web application development company, knowing I wanted to get into enterprise software at some point. We released our first enterprise software product in 2002, and today we serve over 200 federal agencies and Fortune 500 customers around the world. So our product, IntelliTrack, is a platform that enables agencies to develop case management and business process management applications very rapidly. And it really allows companies and agencies to be able to see a return on investment very quickly. And in this environment that we have today, that's very important.
Yeah, government wants an ROI, and so does the taxpayer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's
absolutely.
what they want to do. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, what we've been able to save our agencies millions and millions of dollars by implementing this product. Normally when you do custom software development, it takes years to sometimes develop and multi-million dollars. With our software product, implementation time generally takes around 3 to 6 months, and is a very reasonable price. So it's been very, very good for us to be able to continue to evolve and get our product out there to the market.
So what was your actual catalyst for founding your own company?
I think the catalyst for me was just the drive and determination that I thought I could do something better than everyone else, right? I was young, I was 21 years old when I started.
No fear
so,
at that age. No.
Exactly. So, so I was Probably just felt like I could do something better. I felt like, if you do the right thing and you take care of your team members, at the end of the day, everything else will take care of itself and success will follow that.
Yes, and your team is very devoted to you, I understand.
Absolutely,
too. Yes.
Very passionate about the things that they do, passionate about the company and the product, and passionate about serving our customers to the best of our ability.
And that's what government contractors should do, be passionate about serving the government. Thank you. So inside the Beltway in Washington, needless to say, all of us in the government contracting community are maybe somewhat obsessed or have been talking a lot about LPTA, lowest price technically acceptable, not exactly relished or loved by many government contractors. But outside of the Beltway, is there the same interest? Is there the same obsession? And what are you doing at MicroPact to address LPTA?
Sure, I think outside the Beltway, I'm not quite sure if there's the same type of visibility as it is around here, of course. But I think people should care about LPTA because at the end of the day, if applied inappropriately, it could cost taxpayers millions of dollars, which of course affect all of us. So LPTA is a method and a form that contracting officials sort of use to try to get the lowest price. They're looking just for technical acceptability out of a minimum standard. They're not looking for above and beyond, and that's how they sort of choose. So at the end of the day, when somebody submits a proposal, they can sort it by the lowest price, read the technical proposal. If it's a pass, then they win. They don't even need to review the rest of the other proposals that are out there today. So for us, we've been fortunate. We haven't had to deal with LPTA too much from our contracting perspective, because the type of work that we do is complex in nature. It's a lot of development type work. So for us, it's for LPTA, you really have to truly understand what your needs are for your particular opportunity to be able to apply that properly. If you're unsure what the outcome will be or what you really want, then that vehicle is probably not the best vehicle to use, and best value is generally what's utilized in the government contract community. So, and that's how we generally win our work, is through best value based on past performance, management plans, and how we have done regarding our implementation of our products.
So for best value, that's also, of course, now becoming more and prevalent. Do you think that best value is applicable across the board or more really in your space?
I think across the board we're certainly seeing that. I mean, LPTA, I think it's the hottest flavor right now, and people are talking about it. But I've seen some of the studies in terms of procurements that have been coming out. There's a slight uptick in LPTA use, but I think best value in terms of being able to quantify or the actual value regarding past performance and management plan, and comparing that to cost versus just cost being the only factor or the main factor of it, is really where the government contract community is going.
There are many challenges that all government contractors are facing today. MicroPact has managed to not only weather the storm, but has thrived in this era. So Kris, you're thriving. How come you're thriving, but what are the challenges you're facing? Sure,
I think we're thriving because we provide an innovative product to the federal government that's generally different than what's out in the marketplace today. For us, we've been fortunate. We've been growing at over 25% year over year over the last several years, and this year we're projected to grow over 70%. So even with the fiscal environment the way it is, I think there's opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity for small businesses to be able to go out there, prove their past performance to the federal officials that are doing the evaluation on the proposals, and show that small businesses can do the type of work that large integrators generally are being tasked to do. So in our case, when we compete, we generally have to compete against the likes of the Microsofts, the Oracles, and the big ERP implementations. So for us, it gives the contracting officials now, because of the fiscal environment, they have to take a look at it. Can I spend millions and millions of dollars, multi-millions of dollars with these large enterprise software companies, or can we look at another alternative that provides the same type of value, and if not even more, because of the nimbleness and the different features that are needed in a federal government program office. So our software is really geared towards the federal government, and I think the federal officials are seeing that and certainly making contract awards to us, fortunately, in this environment.
That's because you're delivering something also with a great ROI for them, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, immediate ROI and the ability to really develop these applications in a very rapid fashion and make rapid application development a reality in
because you're a David
world.
Versus a Goliath.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Absolutely. Yes.
So our large contractor viewers have droves of experts in terms of how to cope with sequestration, what are the best strategies. But smaller and mid-sized government contractors don't necessarily have all those experts on board. So Kris, I think a lot of our viewers are going to be fascinated by your success. And smaller government contractors are probably watching today saying, how does Kris do it? How is his firm going to grow 75% this year? How do I do that? How would you advise our viewers?
Sure. I always, look at things sort of probably in a different way. And so what I always say is don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. Don't be afraid to challenge the best practices that are out there today. I always tell a lot of my team members and my management, these best practices that you're talking about with me, they were created by somebody or a company, right? So at the end of the day, if you can come up with our own, if we can come up with our own that fits our model, that fits and that's best interest of our government customers, that's what's really going to provide the differentiator between you and the competition. Because everyone else has read those same best practices, everyone else is probably applying those same best practices. So what you really need to do to set yourself apart is be a little bit different than them.
So
and
think
find your
outside
niche.
of the box.
Absolutely.
Are there ways that you elicit that creative and innovative thinking from your team?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always challenging them. I'm always asking them and really digging deep into the core of the issue to ensure they're thinking about it in a lot of different ways. And it's in a collaborative nature, you know. It's not just me, it's my other executives that come into the room when we're having a particular issue, and when we throw things on the board to see what makes the most sense, you know. I'm very common sense. That's how I lead the business, and I've been fortunate to be successful in being able to do that.
And you're a people person, you care about your people.
Absolutely.
I can tell that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Our team members, absolutely. Culture is one of the most important things when being able to achieve the growth that a small business like us is experiencing, because you have so many new people coming into the organization. You have to ensure that your team members that are there today can coach and mentor the new people that are coming. And when they're coming at a rapid pace, that becomes very difficult, and the foundation must be in place for that to occur and to be successful.
And also to be efficient. You don't want to be reinventing the wheel with everybody that comes in. You need to know exactly what they're going to learn.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
As our regular viewers know, we like to close with a question with regard to winning. Key Solutions is the force behind Government Contracting Weekly and provides strategy, capture and proposal support services to help government contractors win. So we're always fascinated about, and so are our viewers, what does it take to win? And particularly, Kris, you've obviously been decisive, helped led your company to success. You're winning, not everybody else is. What are your keys to winning?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head when you said being decisive. I mean, you have to be decisive in order to ensure your folks downstream know what's going on, sort of what their priorities are. And if you can't be decisive, it's very difficult to win. It's very difficult to get anything done. So, sort of the challenges that we face our government contractors today, it's the indecisiveness and the uncertainty that
from the top.
Exactly,
yes,
from the top, from Congress, from the president, not really making decisions on budgets. I mean, we haven't had a budget passed since 1996-97, and that's quite a long time to not have a plan of how you should be spending your money. So how can we provide efficiencies without having those types of things in place? And that's the issue. I think if we can modernize that, our procurement process starting from the top, I think trickle-down effect will certainly help both the program office being able to have enough time to plan, and then the contracting officials having a real, true competition and ensuring they are truly picking the best firm that's going to provide the best value to the federal government.
Well, I think that's great advice. I don't think there are many government contractors that would disagree with you, but you're really saying also internally, despite the external milieu, despite all the uncertainty, you're still taking a lead. Where there are others that are waiting and perhaps dithering, you're moving ahead.
Yes, you got to be decisive. You got to make those decisions. You got to make them quickly. Competition is fierce. They're always running behind you or running in front of you. You always got to be chasing or running faster than them so they don't catch you. So you got to be decisive, make those decisions quickly.
Well, Kris, I hope that all of our government contractors have taken note. If you want to grow at 75%, listen to Kris's advice. Thank you for coming in this morning,
Thank you.
Kris.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Earlier this year, I heard on your program that the red team process for government contractors is basically broken. How so, and what should be done?
Yes, the norm is that most red teams in our business are dysfunctional. The root causes are varied: lack of customer knowledge by reviewers, inadequate review time, lack of process discipline and ineffective rules of engagement, conducted too late in the proposal process, propensity of reviewers to pontificate rather than read and score, vague, conflicting, unprofessional, non-actionable comments, and lack of rigor in disposition and implementation of what few constructive comments are received. What should be done? Throw it out and start again. There's another red team paradigm available in the market. We call it Win Team, one that is constructive, not destructive, one where reviewers and writers collaborate for the best results, one that generates actionable advice, one that reinforces a sense of team, not destroys morale, one that creates heroes, not scapegoats, one that concentrates on winning, not fault-finding and nitpicking. Until the process is fixed, we wonder whether no red team is better than a bad one. You decide. For more information about this and other keys to winning, go to governmentcontractingweekly.com and click on Weekly Buzz.
I hope you agree that our guests today, Sanjay Castelino of SolarWinds and Kris Collo of MicroPact, both bring a highly focused approach to the critical area of pricing. I also hope you'll agree to join us next week right here back at Government Contracting Weekly, which we also hope has become a regular part of your weekly learning regimen. See you next week.
At Key Solutions, we have been working for more than 30 years to help government contractors win and retain government contracts in excess of $125 billion. We understand that coming in second place, it's not an option, and that principle-centered winning is the only way forward. That's how we have worked with 9 out of the top 10 and 87 out of the top 100 government contractors. I'm Jim McCarthy, owner of Key Solutions, and we want to help you win or retain your next contract. Contact us at aockeysolutions.com.
My name is Kris Collo. I'm the President and CEO of MicroPact, and I watch Government Contracting Weekly every Sunday. I tape it. In fact, I have 4 kids running around all the time, so I like to watch it whenever I have an opportunity. And it really provides me a lot of great insight, being able to see my peers in the government contracting community, and also be able to hear the trends and happenings regarding government contracting from straight from the horse's mouth, from government officials. It certainly helps me when I'm making decisions within the organization, as I use a lot of the information and data that I receive from Government Contracting Weekly to make the decisions that I make every single day.
You've been watching Government Contracting Weekly, sponsored each week by AOC Key Solutions Incorporated. Government Contracting Weekly is the only television program devoted exclusively to the competitive and dynamic world of government contracting. For additional information, comments, questions, or suggestions, please write us at governmentcontractingweekly.com.